Next, standard operational log of events.
That's
Who's got that?
me, Rob Horn.
Rob Horn, take it away.
So SOL is standardizing a log of events to solve some real business analytics, workflow management, hospital management issues. We start with the very basic. Why is it taking too long for the report? Angry doctors, overloaded equipment, underloaded equipment, systems sitting idle. It's increasingly hard to figure out why. Then you get to queues. A lot of hospitals, the same, one waiting room will be overcrowded, another will be empty. And in a complex situation, you don't know why. Now, I went and stole some advertising. Some hospitals solve that by saying, I'll spend money on nicer waiting rooms. Nobody will mind. But that's not how most people can deal with it, and it doesn't really solve the problem of equipment going to waste and queues being mismanaged. For that, people need real data of how long are things taking, where are people waiting, where are bottlenecks, and try to understand why. People want to do workflow simulations, analyze their procedures, revise their procedures. They'll do trials of different procedures, revise them, and need feedback on what works. And then they want data. And this got to our requirements. It has to be suitable and rewarding for incremental improvements. It's got to work that with, so if 10% of my equipment starts reporting data, that's useful. We're not going to get everybody switched over right away. Having partial data needs to be useful. Staff is overloaded, so things that require a lot of staff input are not going to flow. It has to be easy to add to equipment, and it has to improve your understanding of the workflow. We've got some of that going already, and the field problem is everybody's been doing different formats, different meanings, proprietary tools, the usual IHE problems of we've got lots of point solutions, but they don't talk. So things need to be consistent, and that was the motivation behind the effort that SIM started with SLIM. They wanted a common definition of the steps, not unique to any particular vendor. They wanted indicators that are useful, the key indicators, define the data elements to capture the useful information, and they prioritized what should be measured first. This was the starting point for SOL. We started with the results of their work. They did several pilots, so this was much better than theoretical, I think that would be nice. There's feedback of which indicators really did work, which indicators were impractically difficult, and so forth. And from that, what we will end up able to do is track several kinds of activities. One that was identified as feasible and valuable is to track what are all the activities that happen between when you place an order for a study and when that study is ready to read. And this here is an example. These are all existing actors that could be upgraded to include sole capability. It's certainly not restricted to these actors, but an order placer could report that an order was entered. The order filler could say when it was scheduled. The ADT system could track when the patient arrived. The patient location tracking could track when they go through the door of the room into the computer, say it's a CT, into the CT room. The acquisition modality could say when it started and when it finished. Location tracker could say the patient's left the room. QC could say, yep, good images, and study is ready to read. This is going to tell you a lot of useful information from the patient arrival and motion. You'll know how long they're spending at each step. You'll know how long is the prep time between when they come into the room and when you can actually start imaging, how long the imaging took, and how long the unprep time was. So you know if you've got a bottleneck, you can figure out, is it because my modality is too slow? Is it a prep time issue? Is it an exit? Or is it a delay between patients? So that makes a big difference in your management of procedures. Also looked at, once you've got a study, defined events for the activities that go from it's ready to read until the report is available. Here it'd be an image display, report creator, archive, order filler are likely candidates. And again, we defined events like exam open for reporting, report dictated, report available, and so forth. And noted some of these here are existing logs out of ATNA for activities that are already being captured, and we are using ATNA. New stuff, fairly simple one. This one actually exists in ITI, so we just point at it and explain it. When you're doing analysis, you need a way to request, say, all of March. And there is a event repository transaction to do something like it, all of March. For mobile devices, there's an interesting quirk. Apple and the Android world both have internal logging systems that are highly specialized to minimum power consumption, memory, and so forth, and not standard. So we said, define the transaction so that when they get somewhere where power, network, and so forth are suitable, they can upload from the internal log into the standard from IHE. Everyone would love dashboards. We have the great marketing vision, the more realistic vision, and we just had to explain the existing audit transactions. You can use the filter and forward that's been defined to forward the relevant ones to a dashboard so that it can do a continuous update. Now the scope we limited because you could theoretically measure everything in the world. It's too big, and started saying it'll be limited to imaging departments that use orders and schedule appointments. That's plenty big enough. That's what radiology lives on, and it will span to a few other imaging departments. And cover the activities between when you place the order and when you finish the report. And within that, I went through the swim list for everything that was reasonable to implement and define, sufficiently informative, and a manageable scope. The technology I won't spend a lot of time on. It's syslog, like ATNA. It's widespread. It's in use. The DICOM schema that ATNA uses and that is used for security events can be extended quite easily and was extended to operational events. And what changed is the existing schema already tracks who, what, where, and when an event took place. And what we had to do was to add event codes that are not security events and not security or privacy related events. And the bulk of the profile is definitions in detail for each of those events of what is the event, what are the whose, machines, software, people that might have done the event, where are the events, have a way to capture location if relevant, when did the event take place, and encode it the same way that the security events are encoded. So all the tooling for ATNA can be reused. And I'll let people read for a bit. The new events end up just barely fitting into columns on one page. That's approximately sort of time order of activities that were found to be significant performance impacts and found to be simple enough to measure and probably measurable. Most of these, there's a machine that can figure out what's happened. If you do not have patient tracking systems, some of these patient in and out may be a little bit tricky, but they're not too terribly hard. Almost every acquisition equipment knows when it starts and stops and what it's doing. If you have QC, QC knows about it. The others around reporting, the reporting tracker usually knows what's going on. As for how to analyze it, we are silent. This is a data delivery, and it delivers it to a repository that can preserve this data for years if you want, and provide it in chunks based on request to people who want to do an analysis of some sort.